God, this got to be pretty exciting. Respawn's new game set in the Titanfall universe, exclaimed Grant Taylor-Hill, Insider Gaming. Before you get excited, this isn't an article about Titanfall 3, but it's close. In a recent episode of Game Mess Mornings, Jeff Grubb opened up with what's happening at Respawn Entertainment, touching on the original IP being developed at the firm by Steve Fukuda, who directed Titanfall and Titanfall 2, what seems to be basically a lifetime ago. Months ago, Vince Zampella, the head honcho at Respawn, said that Fukuda was fleshing out the earliest stages of piecing together something new. But it would never be a Titanfall 3. That's the biggest problem, I think, right there, Scott. However, according to Grubb, the game that Fukuda and company are creating is set in the Titanfall universe. Interesting. Okay, let's back this up real quick. EA just canceled the Star Wars game from Respawn. We touched on it briefly yesterday. Dude, that one hurts.
I can't make much sense of that one still.
It's a licensed IP. It's one of the biggest IPs in the entire world. It's Star Wars.
The only people who don't trust Respawn to handle that is EA.
Man, this is where I was like, if only Respawn was out on their own, this would have, dude, it would have done well. It would have done well. But it is what it is now, and it's just a heartbreaker to think that is no longer around, right? During the most recent episode of Game Mess Mornings, Jeff Grubb elaborated on what he knows about Respawn's entertainment projects. Following recent layoffs at Electronic Arts, Respawn was hit with the Star Wars first-person shooter that was rumored to be based on the adventures of a Mandalorian, was canceled. I know. I've heard of 1313. What is with EA and canceling games, dude?
Oh, it's a money printing machine right there, and they're just gonna let this slip through their fingers.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and then granted, now you're gonna go to a Respawn. We're not getting Titanfall 3, but we're getting something based in the universe. I'm very intrigued.
As a big fan of Titanfall, that kind of just makes me think of that as a Titanfall 3, in my opinion. I'm not really sure what constitutes a Titanfall game. There's no real congruity between the first game and the second, other than they're in the same universe and some of the similar battles are happening. But it's not so much of like a number 3 has to follow the events of number 2 for it to make sense.
Right.
It really doesn't have to be that way.
Steve Fukuda original title is still in development, though. Grubb remarked that the game, which is untitled, is in the prototyping phase, but the team is about to get much wider. Here's what he had said, taken directly from the podcast. Quote, "The game, as it stands today, as far as I understand it, is a Titanfall game. It's set in the Titanfall universe." End quote. He highlighted that he doesn't know how an extension of the Titanfall universe without being Titanfall 3, which is basically what you're suggesting, Scott.
Yeah,
and
I suppose Apex is.
Well, that's just it, man. Right? That's based in the Titanfall universe, and Apex completely different. Completely different, right?
Yeah, well, just the fact that everybody's got like 8 layers of armor more than Titanfall would have ever allowed for just changes the gameplay up entirely. But
yep, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely Respawn Entertainment should figure out a way to make that happen. Referencing the follow-up to the 2016 shooter, it was a year ago that Electronic Arts shut down production on Titanfall Legends, which would have been a new single-player title rooted in the Apex universe.
Yeah, which itself is rooted in the Titanfall universe. It's like EA's trying to separate the two, but I don't know why. There's already space in between the two for an unlimited amount of games. I don't know why you need to just kind of bury the Titanfall lead.
I wonder if everybody else at Respawn right now is scratching their head just like the rest of us, right? Like you're going, what do you mean you just scrapped everything from what we've heard was going well on the Star Wars project, right? That first-person shooter project, and now they have to start all over. If this is in prototyping phase, they're just going to keep banking. Well, first of all, we know they're working on the next Star Wars Jedi game, right? Like, that's in production. They're continually working on Apex content. So they're going to bank off of those two until they can get to whatever this Titanfall project is?
Well, there's a theory that they're really just trying to push Titanfall away from. Sorry, there's an issue where the licensing for Star Wars might be so expensive that it's just not worth doing.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is just to kind of pull. They want to save Titanfall 3, the big name, because that'll cause everybody to turn their heads. But they still need something in the meantime. So this is kind of using some of those assets, perhaps. We'll see those kind of blend into the Titanfall universe instead of being a Star Wars game.
Well, yeah, I think that was the other thing I was thinking in the back of my mind, which you brought to the forefront, is, dude, Star Wars is just too expensive to ride with, right? You saw EA go away from FIFA because they wanted so much money. They're like, no, not happening. We're going to create our own thing instead, to great success, right? They've got their own soccer game now, football, whatever, wherever you're from. It's just still the same game. But it is basically FIFA, but without the title, right? And is that what they're looking here to create then, Scott? Is a Titanfall-esque experience kind of similar to a Star Wars? Can we get something like that? Star Wars obviously has lightsabers and everything else, but we have a Star Wars game coming from them. But if they're doing a first-person Star Wars game, dude, first-person Star Wars can be a very good, cool spin-off into the world of Titanfall. So when they're working on a concept and they're prototyping, I wonder how much they just went copy paste. Not exactly, right? Because they can't do that.
Yeah.
But still taken in the same vein of, how can we take this project we've been working on for years with the Star Wars IP, where we don't want to pay for that IP, we can use our own IP in Titanfall with the love behind that, with the fans who are all adoring of Titanfall, and create something else as a spin-off, right? So then you have Titanfall, you have Titanfall 2, you have Apex Legends, and now another Titanfall game, and then Titanfall 3 hits, right? All of a sudden, that Titanfall universe is just becoming larger and larger, and they're expanding out into bigger areas without having to worry about the big budgeted cost that's going to linger over the head when it comes to Star Wars, right? That IP does not come for free. That comes at a big price. I could only imagine, right? So,
it's got to be massive.
Exactly.
I'm thinking this is a sign that maybe Respawn and EA aren't so sure they want to. This is an interesting idea. Maybe they've learned from their own past mistakes, and they don't want to drown out their own shooter. They're competitive, competing in the same space. Yeah. So Titanfall 3, it would have to have a multiplayer. In my mind, at least, Titanfall's always been multiplayer. Yep. So maybe it's just that they're not so confident they can match that kind of impact that Titanfall 1 had, but 2 did not capture. So and then you put all the rest of the marketplace into perspective too. Maybe now's not the right time for Titanfall by name.
Absolutely. I think when Titanfall 1 dropped, though, dude, nobody's seen anything like it, right? Like, nothing. All of a sudden, call in your Titan, and this big, giant robot, this mech, comes... Like, it just... What an impact that had. Dude,
if you get kills with that one, felt good, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely was. But it was... Titanfall 1 was pure multiplayer. Pure multiplayer. And then at that E3 showing, dude, that's all people were talking about. So when you get into Titanfall 2, people were like, where's the single player? And then they brought the single player, and not many people played it. Like, it was just kind of...
Oh, it was so good, though. And it's funny because myself and everybody else who's played through it, it's referenced all the time as being so good. And then the time travel mission, and everybody has different moments they loved from it. If you're a fan of first-person shooters in general, you owe it to yourself to play it.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day,
it's probably like $2 now.
Yeah, probably. Absolutely. But it does sound like we're getting something at least related to Titanfall.